Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to Roots and Refuge Farm. I'm making a cup of tea to sit down and enjoy it with you guys and have a chat. Today is a town day and I don't normally make videos on town days. I know I own like a tea company, like we sell coffee and tea, which means that it probably would seem strange for me to still drink other things, but I am a lover of teas. I mean, that is why I wanted to sell tea and coffee, is because I thoroughly enjoy those things. And while I love the ones that we have, I still love finding new ones to try. I still buy coffee from other places, even though obviously primarily I drink our own. Yesterday, I took Ezra out for, it was his 12th birthday celebration, and I did like just a one-on-one day with him. Ezra's my foodie kid. He's the one who loves to read like the Arc of Taste and all of that. And we went to this little place. It's in downtown, 5 Points in Columbia if you're local. And it's called the Gourmet Shop. It's one of my favorite places to go. I get stocking stuffers there, and they have a really great cafe. And I got a cup of tea that I so thoroughly enjoyed that I had to buy some. And it is this Republic of Tea Ginger Peach. I'm sure you can find this online. I'll look and see if I can find a link. But I wanted to bring it home because I have freeze-dried ginger from my garden. And I was like, this with like just a little extra kick of ginger, some honey, some lemon. Oh, I'm so excited. I actually took a multiple month break from caffeine. I was drinking our Beulah decaf, and oolong tea kind of snuck it back in on me because I just didn't realize how caffeinated oolong tea was. And so I was like, oh, I'm just gonna have some of this. And the next thing I knew, I was drinking quite a bit of it. And the next thing I knew, I ran out and had a headache. I was like, no. So I've been kind of weaning back a little bit, but I am drinking a little caffeine this morning so I don't end up with a headache. So town days. If you are dreaming of homesteading or thinking about when you will someday get to move to a country property, or if you already have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I grew up in a suburb. Like, I grew up 5 minutes from the store. And of course, the first handful of years of Maya and I being married and, you know, my early adulthood was spent in a suburb. I lived in an apartment, I lived in a neighborhood, and all of those places were very centrally located to conveniences. And one of the biggest adjustments that I had to make when we moved out to our first farm property was that that property was about 40 minutes from most of the places that I needed to go. Now where we live, we actually have a Walmart within 15 minutes of here. It's like right about 15 minutes from here. So actually here, although we're way more rural than we were in Arkansas, like we're way further from the bigger cities because there is a small town close to us, we have more options close, which has been really nice. But if we have like dentist appointments or any sort of like doctor visit or anything at all like that, I'm pretty much driving an hour. If I want to go to Costco, I'm driving an hour. If there are any sort of specialty things that I need to go buy in a store, pretty much going to be an hour. That was a big adjustment for me over the last handful of years. And so what I have now is town days, which are days that I don't plan on getting any work done on the farm. I usually plan like a crock pot dinner or something that's going to be really easy to throw together, like on the Blackstone when I get home. And I'm typically gone most of the day because if I run 3 errands in a week that I have to drive an hour there and an hour back each one, I'm spending 6 hours in the car. If I do them all in the same day, obviously cuts down on that. And I do not normally even try to make content on town days because I'm trying to get through what I need to on the farm as fast as possible, obviously, so I can leave and fit it all in. But this morning I was thinking, and one, I'm doing the daily content challenge, which means I'm kind of having to dig deep into some places that previously I haven't filmed as much. But 2, I was thinking about something this morning and I thought it would be a really great opportunity for some conversation. I guess a community exercise, if you will, and I wanted to bring it to y'all. So right here, I have what is my most successful ever knitting attempt. You can see this. It looks like knitting. It's not wonky. Previously, a lot of the times that I have tried to knit, it has looked more like knots rather than knit. I would call myself an intermediate crocheter. I learned to crochet originally when I was a teenager, and then I picked it back up for a little while when I was like in my early 20s when my big boys were little, you know, made like baby hats. And so, you know, just some different things. But I never at that point had really learned to read patterns or anything. And then I picked it back up again just a handful of years ago. And at this point, I would say I'm quite proficient. Like I can read patterns. If I have a pattern, I could probably make whatever. I choose to make more simple things. Like I would say I make mostly beginner to intermediate items or patterns because I prefer my crochet to be mindless. I don't want to have to keep up a lot with like tons of numbers and stuff like that. I want to be able to memorize whatever it is that I'm doing. And so usually I'm doing maybe between like a 3 and 6 row repeat. I'm never doing anything that's like absolutely insane where I have to keep the written pattern on me. But that's a choice. I could do the more advanced stuff. That's not why I crochet. I typically crochet to unwind. Anyway, I've wanted to learn to knit for quite a while, and I have picked it up and tried a lot of times, and I am admittedly not good at being bad at things. No, let me clarify. There are a lot of things that I do not know how to do. I think that we have to identify, I just don't know how to do something. Like when people are like, I'm a bad gardener. I'm like, you haven't learned. I'm bad at cutting hair. It's because I haven't learned. And for the things that I just don't know how to do, that I don't want to do, fine. Yeah, it's completely fine. I just pay somebody to cut my kid's hair, you know, like I'm completely okay. I don't know how to do that. I've made my peace with it. When I really want to know how to do something, and I don't know how to do it, and I'm having to deal with my lack of experience, it's frustrating. I mean, it's like that for anybody, I think. So I joke that I'm bad at being bad at things. But anything that's worth doing is worth being bad at. And the biggest thing I think that we struggle with, and I think as a culture, like test taking and the way that we have largely been educated to pass tests and stuff like that has really driven in like failure is bad mentality. You know, like we avoid failure because we think that that like grades us poorly as people. When in actuality, if what you are trying to do is to just learn, failure is absolutely part of the process. So yesterday, I took Ezra out for his day, and one of the things, Ezra loves going in stores, bookstores like Barnes & Noble. And one of the things that I have noted about Ezra is that just he never has enough time in those places. Like we always, because we have everybody else with us, all the other kids, I always end up having to be like, come on, bud, we got to go. You know, like you need to make a choice, or, you know, we got to walk away. We can't stay any longer. So in the day that I planned yesterday, part of it was that we went to Barnes & Noble, and Ezra had like 3 hours if he wanted it. If he didn't, I had a backup plan, but he wanted it. And I basically said, listen, I'm bringing something to do. I'm going to sit here, you know, where I can generally see you, and I want you to just, to your heart's content, you can browse. You can look at all the things, and you're not in a rush. I'm not rushing you. He had all the hard eyes over that. But I sat down and I was like, I am going to get knitting down. And after about an hour and 15 minutes, Ezra came back to me and he's like, Mom, you're crocheting. I was like, I know. I ran out of patience for trying to learn. But essentially what I have done is I ended up trying about 8 or 9 different yarns from my yarn stash, and finally found one that I could actually get the knitting motion down without it splitting terribly, because that's not as big of an issue for me in crochet, like yarn splitting. And it's weird because I've heard people talk about certain yarns and be like, oh, this one splits so bad. And I'm like, man, that's not been my experience. But with knitting, I recognize that that's way more of an issue. Anyway, I finally got a little bit the hang of it this morning. And in the process of this, I realized that one of the things that was really holding me back in just diving in and learning is that I had a lot of questions and things that I don't understand. And I've watched lots of videos and I've done lots of reading, and I'm looking for the information, but I'm getting hung up on my dumb questions. Now, I always say there are no dumb questions, always. I'm gonna go get my tea. So I've said for a very long time that there are no dumb questions. And I have really made an effort to create a space that like fosters that security. Like, hey, it's okay to be a real actual beginner in something. And, you know, with being a person who really teaches people about gardening, our way of living is just not conducive to people knowing about gardening. I can tell you that there have been more people than I would have ever imagined that have come into my garden that are like my age or older, that have come into my garden and looked at like tomato plants and been like, wow, I didn't know that tomato plants had flowers. They just have not been exposed to the garden. They just have not been exposed to the way that plants grow. And yeah, I'm like, maybe as a kid they went through a small little unit in a class about, you know, botany or plants, but you know, they just haven't had hands-on with it. And I love when I have an opportunity with a person who didn't otherwise know something to be able to be like, yeah, actually, here's how it works, and explain it. But I found myself when I was facing knitting that I had some things that I just weren't clicking. They still aren't clicking, to be completely honest. There are some things that I just don't quite understand. And I'm like, how does this work? And I'm like, oh, it makes you want to quit to have the most obvious things elude you. And what I decided on knitting is like, I have some questions. Like, how do you knit like a big blanket? Is that, because now that I'm understanding, like, your project stays on your needles, or I know you can have the needles that have like the cord in between them, but like, do you get a cord that's that long? I mean, do you knit like a queen size blanket connected all together, or do you do it in strips and sew it together? Like with sweaters, are you making these into, like, you making panels and sewing them together? What happens when you do drop stitches off? Like, you're trying to get them across and you accidentally mess up. Do you just try to get it back on in the right direction? And I do understand that, like, with experience, obviously you'll be able to see what the right direction is. But when you're new, I mean, like, I just ripped it apart, like the whole thing, multiple times, because I didn't know how to fix a simple mistake. And I just really was finding myself stumped on these things. And I was like, who do you ask if you don't know somebody specifically to say, hey, what do you do when you do drop one of your stitches off? How do you get it back on? How do you correct that? Or how does this become a sweater? Like, then you just don't know. And yes, these are things that are obviously learned as you go. And that's why I decided I'm just going to start. I'm going to get the knit stitch down. Yesterday, Ezra asked me, he's like, what are you making? I said, I'm not making anything. I don't expect this to be cohesive at all. I'm just trying to learn to knit. Because I figure if I get this down, it'll give me a grasp, and some of these other things will probably become a little more evident. But I would love those questions answered if anybody has those answers easily, or if you want to send me a link or something to a video. But it got me thinking, I would love for you, if you are in any stage of, if I have something that you see that I understand that is eluding you, or something you feel like, oh, maybe this is obvious and I'm kind of embarrassed to ask, or maybe this is holding me back because I just don't understand how this works and it's keeping me from moving forward, please ask. Let's do this, and I say this is a community exercise. I'm gonna take these questions and I'm gonna make a separate video, like answering some of them. And if they're in sections, like if some of them are on gardening and some of them are on cooking and some of them are on whatever, you know, homesteading, animals, kids, like if whatever it is I have, if you ask me about like how to keep birds in cold climates, I don't know the answer. Like, I can't help you with that. But like, if you ask me about something specific to me, I will gladly answer. And if it needs to be broken into multiple videos, I can do that. But I want to invite the community as well to engage in the comment section. When my channel first started to take off, that's why we started our Facebook group, Friends of Roots and Refuge, because I was getting all these emails and I couldn't, you can come in, I couldn't possibly answer all the questions, but I didn't want people left with no answer. So I started the Facebook group so that people could ask and help each other. Because a lot of the answers that people are looking for, it doesn't have to be me that answers it. So I want to invite you all to ask your questions, to answer questions if you see one that you do have the answer for. And I'm going to take these and make a video to be able to share it with you, because there really are no dumb questions. And when it comes to those things that are very elusive when you're a very beginner, really a lot of times what you need is not all the answers. You just need somebody walking along with you that knows, that can encourage you to keep going. All right, y'all, well, it's town day, so I'm gonna go to town, but I look forward to having this conversation with you guys, and I want to reiterate and encourage you, though sometimes you may need to take a break from something because you're getting frustrated, like I had to do with my knitting. Sometimes you need to find the, you know, tweaks that you can make to make it work for you. But if you are currently trying to learn something new and you are having to get over that introductory hump of just not knowing how to do something, you're not alone. But the really worthwhile things are worth doing poorly so that you can get to the point that you do them well. Thank you for hanging out with me today. God bless you. Until next time.